Ever wonder how an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe managed to stay connected without email, phones, or even a decent highway system? The answer lies in one of the most brilliant and brutal innovations in history, the Mongol Postal System, known as the YAM. This wasn't just about sending letters. It was the nervous system of the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever seen, and its story is absolutely wild. Let's start at the beginning, with the man himself, Genghis Khan. Around the early 1200s, as he was forging his empire, he realized a fundamental truth. Control isn't just about conquering territory, it's about controlling information within it. He needed a way to send commands, receive intelligence, and administer his vast lands swiftly and reliably. And so, the YAM was born. It was Genghis Khan's vision to create a communication superhighway that would bind his sprawling empire together. But it was his son and successor, Genghis Khan, who truly took this vision and put it into overdrive. Genghis understood that to manage an empire of this scale, the YAM needed to be everywhere. He dramatically expanded the network, establishing thousands of relay stations, or ertoi, that crisscrossed Asia. These weren't just dots on a map, they were vital hubs that supported military campaigns, administrative control, and the flow of information that kept the Mongol world turning. Genghis' expansion turned his father's brilliant idea into an imperial institution. So, how did it actually work? Imagine a network of outposts, strategically placed every 25 to 45 miles. That's about a day's hard ride on horseback. These weren't just shabby stables, they were fully staffed service stations for the empire's couriers. A messenger, often riding at a full gallop, would arrive exhausted. But at the station, a fresh rested horse, food, and a place for a brief rest were waiting. This system allowed messengers to cover astounding distances, with some reports claiming they could travel up to 200 miles in a single day. This relentless pace was the secret to the empire's rapid communication. It was the Pony Express, but centuries earlier and on a continental scale. The sheer scale of the YAM is mind-boggling. At its peak, the system boasted over 1,400 way stations, supported by a staggering 50,000 fresh horses ready at a moment's notice. This network was a massive logistical undertaking, requiring thousands of attendants, stable hands, and administrators to keep it running smoothly 24/7. This wasn't a small-scale operation. It was a state-funded, continent-spanning infrastructure project that had no parallel in its time. The investment in horses alone shows how critical the YAM was to the Mongol way of rule. Now imagine you're at one of these way stations. How do you know a messenger is approaching? You'd hear them long before you saw them. Couriers wore belts strung with large bells. As they galloped towards the station, the constant ringing would serve as an alarm, signaling their imminent arrival. This simple but effective trick gave the station attendants a crucial heads-up. They could have a fresh horse, saddled and ready, ensuring the handover was almost instantaneous. There was no time to waste. The message had to keep moving, and these bells were the soundtrack of Mongol efficiency. The commitment to speed was extreme, sometimes brutally so. The riders, known as arrow messengers, were under immense pressure to deliver their dispatches as fast as humanly possible. To maintain their breakneck pace, they would tightly bind their torsos, heads, and limbs with cloth to withstand the punishing ride. Some accounts even claim they would tie themselves to their horses to avoid falling off from exhaustion or while sleeping in the saddle. This wasn't a job for the faint of heart. It was a testament to the life-or-death urgency of the information they carried. The empire's fate could literally rest on their ability to stay on that horse. An operation of this magnitude couldn't run on goodwill alone. It needed serious funding. The YAM was sustained by a sophisticated and mandatory tax system. Local communities and conquered territories were required to provide the resources needed to keep the stations running. This included horses, feed, food for the staff and messengers, and the labor to maintain the facilities. While this was a heavy burden on the local populace, it was non-negotiable. The yam was considered so essential to the empire's survival that its upkeep was a top priority, enforced with the full authority of the Khan. The impact of the yam extended far beyond government and military affairs. It became a massive boon for trade. The famous Silk Road ran right through Mongol territory, and the yam network made it safer and more efficient than ever before. Merchants, if they obtained the right credentials, a special tablet called a pesa, could use the yam system for protection, supplies, and fresh mounts. This security and predictability encouraged a flourishing of commerce and cultural exchange. Marco Polo himself was blown away by the system's efficiency, describing it in detail in his writings and highlighting how it transformed travel and trade across Asia. Of course, the yam's primary purpose remained military. In an era of warfare fought across vast distances, speed was the ultimate weapon. The yam allowed Mongol commanders to coordinate complex, multi-pronged attacks with astonishing precision. A general in Persia could receive updated orders from the Great Khan in Mongolia in a matter of weeks, not months. This enabled the Mongols to react to enemy movements, call for reinforcements, and launch surprise attacks with a speed that left their opponents bewildered and overwhelmed. The yam was, in essence, the empire's strategic nervous system, giving its armies a decisive edge on the battlefield. So, what happened to this incredible system? As the Mongol Empire began to fracture and decline in the 14th century, the yam network started to break down. Without the central authority and funding of a unified empire, the stations fell into disrepair. However, its legacy didn't just vanish. The principles of the yam heavily influenced the development of subsequent postal systems. Most notably, in Russia, the Tsars adopted and adapted the Mongol model to create their own yam service, which persisted for centuries. The very word for coachman in Russian, yamshchik, comes directly from the Mongol yam. The Mongol yam was more than just a postal service. It was the engine that powered an empire. It connected diverse cultures, fueled economic growth, and gave the Mongols an unmatched strategic advantage. It stands as a powerful example of how innovation in communication can fundamentally shape history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales from history. Let me know in the comments what other historical marvels you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious.